Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning. This video is a little bit late, and for that I apologize. Just wanted to quickly run through a bunch of albums from the month of March that I wanted to chat about in full, but I ran out of time in one way or another. There are a couple of albums on here that I want to chat about in a much larger sense. Just ran out of time for some reason, and some of these albums just completely bored me to tears. Without further ado, these are a couple of quick albums I want to chat about before any more time goes by. So let me start this off by saying that I had absolutely zero hopes for this album. I was a big Andrew Bird guy back in the day, and I haven't probably liked an album of his probably since the Noble Beast days. Like, honestly, I used to be obsessed with this guy, but he's gotten so far from where he originally was, and listening to his albums, like, anticipating for this album, I was expecting the worst. However, while I don't think that this is, as the album suggests, his finest work yet, I think this is honestly his finest work in about 10 years. Like, I love the sort of outlaw vibe that you get here at times. I think the songwriting is sharp as freaking hell, and I honestly think that there's actually some swagger on tunes. And, like, yeah, this isn't his finest work to date, but if you really love the old days of Andrew Bird and want to see him get back on track in a big way, this is great, and the Sisyphus single is fantastic. I'm not even gonna lie. I loved this album. I love these guys in general. I loved them on the last season of Twin Peaks. I loved their debut album. I love their kind of throwback country, very stripped down pop sound to it. Really think that's pretty cool and something that's not really been going around a lot these days. This is, a little bit more edgy than their first album. There's a little bit more electric guitars, electric instrumentals in general, but they actually cross over very nicely and come out with a great set of tunes. Like, obviously, this isn't going to be a country or an alternative country album for everybody, but if you're looking for something different in these genres, give this duo a listen. They come up with some pretty cool stuff. Oh boy. Like, I've enjoyed a lot of Mark Kozelek's work over the years, especially his early years and stuff like Benji, but how is it that he's just run out of anything interesting to say? Like, I don't want to be that guy and say that, like, I feel like he needs to put a couple more slight hooks in here, but this album is an abomination. Like, there is no interesting tunes on here at all. I'm sorry. Now, you see, I've actually been a really big fan of Tim's in the past. I've really enjoyed a lot of Strand of Oaks albums, and hearing the singles going into this, I really thought that he was pushing for a real throwback sound in his catalog, and that's exactly what that is. Matter of fact, when this album is on, like, these are some of Tim's best and just most emotional tracks in years, especially after kind of going electric on Hard Love. But, like, at the end of the day, this album, there is a lot to it. Like, this is over an hour of material. I don't think it needed to be this long. I just feel like this album is just so bloated at times. Like, there are some tracks here that are just god awful and didn't need to be here. This is a fine Strand of Oaks album, but it really needed to be trimmed down. So years ago, I really wasn't that crazy about the first X Hex album. I saw them live around that time. They didn't really wow me with the performance either. But I'll be honest, I'm liking this album much more than anything on that album. I feel like the choruses are much catchier, and I feel like the songwriting's a lot better as well. And it doesn't really overstay its welcome too. Like, sure, these ladies really aren't doing anything genre defying, and I think that a lot of bands are doing this sound a lot better, but I certainly don't hate this album, not nearly as much as I thought I would. I'm going to keep this one pretty short and pretty sweet because, I don't really have that much to say about this album. I, got hip to these guys because I'm a big Idols fan, and a lot of Idols fans have been pumping this Crows album up quite a bit. I think it's a really decent punk album. There's some great elements of, like, post-hardcore and post-punk in here as well. I just feel like there were maybe a couple of tracks here that needed, like, a big catchy hook to really send these tracks home. Like, I think the writing is fine. I think that, like, it's actually actually seriously intense at times too, and very dark. I love that aspect to it. But I just feel like a couple of tracks here could have been a little bit more memorable if Crows just put in a little bit more effort into these choruses. That's just me though. If you're a punk fan, this is an album that you really shouldn't miss. Now, while I've been seriously critical on Dream Ritual in the past, like their first three EPs, it's totally in one ear and out the other, like did nothing to stop me in my tracks. I think that this is a really solid, heavier psychedelic rock album. Like, it's not cringeworthy, especially not as cringeworthy as I thought it would be. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's only like 27 minutes long. There's some great riffs, there's some great hooks. I really dig this thing. Like, yeah, there's nothing too like stunning, and like the production could have been a little grimier, but for like the heavier side of psychedelic rock, I don't think that this is cheesy or corny. I think it's pretty good, and I didn't see that coming. I mean, honestly, this album's really not that bad. As a matter of fact, I've been a big fan of Amanda's for years. I've been a fan of her solo work and her stuff in Dresden Dolls, and she's just an incredible performer. Now, my only real issue with this album is the elephant in the room. Its length. It is an hour and 18 minutes. And does that hour and 18 minutes really constitute for an entire album? Like, is there anything that needs to be trimmed down? It's all very debatable. Like, there are some tracks here that are pretty monstrous, but to be honest, Amanda is just such a captivating performer that, honestly, for the most part, like, you can get through this album pretty easily. It's not that hard to get through. I just, I wish it was just a little bit shorter, but still, Amanda's doing some amazing things, and she's just such an incredible performer. It's still worth a listen. So I don't completely hate this new teen album. As a matter of fact, I think that this is pretty rad in parts. Like, they're doing some pretty out there stuff, especially from like where they've been in the past. Like, I don't know, like, I definitely commend their much more experimental approach here, but for me, I do feel like it's just missing a couple of hooks here and there. Like, if you're interested in a pretty out there, pretty spacey, pretty weird pop album, this is definitely one that you want to check out, but I just feel like I need a little bit more of a catchy hook every once in a while. That's just me though. Oh boy, I really tried liking this album. I thought, like, after his last album that I was sort of really starting to get Gary's music, and I think he's a hell of a guitarist, and I think this is a really progressive album for him, but I just don't understand why everything has to be so damn political here. Like, his electric blues on his last album, like, that was actually really good at points. This album is like an hour and 15 minutes long, and a lot of it is political. Like, there's some really great ideas. Like, there are some very stripped down old school rock tracks that come off great, but I think this album really needed to be slimmed down a little bit, and I just think Gary can do better. And that's going to do it for these short album reviews for the month of March. If you enjoyed this segment, let me know. Give us a like. Don't forget to subscribe, and let me know down below what you guys would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a good day, guys.